Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 25. What are we talking about today?
Today's episode is called Stop Shitting All Over Yourself.
Love it. Love it.
So we'll get into more about what that means, but it's
Yeah.
an important topic.
Yeah, for sure. How's the week?
Good. We watched the Super Bowl up until the halftime show, and Usher was absolutely fantastic. Brought me back. I was dancing and singing on the couch. It was so fun. Loved it. We got a foot of snow, which was a lot, and our dogs are the happiest little pack you will ever see. It was fun to run around with them. I mean, they were acting like they're little puppies again.
Yeah, we had a nice photo shoot. Yeah.
It was fun. But I'm ready for spring.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're watching on video, I have a blanket on because I'm so cold. I'm just always cold. And then we also went this week to a Rising Tide meeting. I think we've mentioned them before, but Rising Tide is a nonprofit group for small business owners, and they're all over the world, not just the US. So we went to the chapter here in Connecticut and just got to network with other small business owners. Everyone's so supportive. I really love it. And it's a monthly meeting, so we're definitely trying to get there more often.
Yeah. We talked about this a little while we were there, and I think we've also shared a little on the podcast, but like we did a lot of Chamber of Commerce. We did BNIs. We did different networking groups, young professional groups, and really we struggled because though we found little bits of business here and there, it was really just kind of a lot of times like people to go drink with, or it was, it in a lot of the chambers, it turns into this like clique of different groups of people. But with Rising Tide, I mean, it's such a great group. We really get to meet entrepreneurs. That's actually what I wanted to share today. Like, I feel like being there, being around them, us kind of getting back into networking and making appearances, it keeps me in it for sure. Like I felt much better about all the things we're doing. And not that I felt bad, but I think we've definitely kind of been frustrated that we didn't have more coaching programs out or what that looked like. So with that said, had a great meeting there, and we do have an announcement to share. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, so we're having our very first masterclass. It is free.
Yep.
So it is all about breathwork and self-talk. And you can sign up at newmoonholisticlife.com/breathe. And basically it's going to be like a 30 to 45 minute, masterclass where I'm going to be teaching all about why breathwork is so important and the fact that you can do it in literally 5 to 10 minutes a day and see absolutely amazing results. So why wouldn't you try something like that? It's just building the habit and building the practice and knowing that it's actually worth taking the time to do that.
Yeah. We'll review the nervous system and, kind of how that impacts our stress response, and also get into kind of the idea of like breath work being around for millennia, and people overlook it because it sounds so simple. But it's kind of taking your breath for granted. So we're going to get into that, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, so it's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on February 26th, but if you can't make it live, you can sign up anyways and we'll send you the replay after.
Yep. The replay will be available, and we have something coming up after that, which we'll keep under wraps for now, but stay tuned.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this because I love this phrase. So what does it mean, stop shitting all over yourself?
It's talking about when we're constantly using should statements and you're saying, I should be doing this, or even looking outside of you and saying, this should be happening.
Yeah.
And it's setting you up for disappointment and creating these expectations. And we've talked a lot about expectations and assumptions. So an expectation is when you are really hoping and kind of planning for something to happen. And then you end up with this major expectation hangover when it doesn't happen.
Right.
It's you fill yourself with guilt and shame if it's something that you expected of yourself, or disappointment if it's something outside of yourself. So it's a way of catching yourself when you're using these should statements and reframing them into a different way.
Yeah, and I think we both and every entrepreneur has lots of experience with should statements and the expectations that you hold yourself to. But we also do it in our relationships. We do it in a bunch of areas. But when it comes to yourself, it can really mess with your business and your productivity, and the way you feel about yourself. Your self worth and self respect. So it's kind of starting that conversation of being mindful of what you hold yourself to.
Yeah, and this is, something that we're going to talk about in our masterclass. It's the self-talk that you're using and the way that you're talking to yourself and about yourself like I should be doing this.
Yeah.
It just has, even saying it like that, you can see it has like just kind of this negative like expectation to it that you should do something.
Yeah. Like you're not good enough. You didn't do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you don't do it or it doesn't happen, you just feel shame, judgment, guilt, and that does not help you on your path towards growth in any way.
Right. So there's some different kinds of them. So there's internalized should statements and external should statements. Do you want to talk about the difference between those two?
Yeah, internal is really when you're telling yourself, like, I should be doing this. You're setting yourself up for potential shame and guilt if you don't do it. And not to mention that so many of us like over plan and, say, I should do this, and this. And we don't even realize like we don't actually have the time to do that or the energy to do all of those things. So then
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're like, well, I didn't get all of those done. And you feel terrible about them. And one example that I use a lot is saying, like, I should go to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe in your mind you think you should, but there's a way to reframe that where, like, if you don't make it for whatever reason, something comes up or you don't feel good, you don't feel that shame of, like, well, I didn't get that done.
Yeah. And I think it's also going back to that conversation of like, how do you reframe that? Of like, I would feel great if I went to the gym. But at the same time, it's that conversation of what is the ideal? Okay. I didn't make it there today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And always making sure that that's the plan.
Yeah, I think what you just said is a good way of saying it. Like, what is your ideal? Yes, but you don't have to frame it as I should.
Right.
There's nothing that everyone should do. Like, I mean, you can argue that in certain ways and things,
Sure.
you should be kind or whatever,
Yeah.
but there's nothing that like you need to say like I should be doing this and be so harsh on yourself about it.
Yeah. I mean, just reiterating it ad nauseum like a broken record, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I should. Should is a word that is like you're setting a very specific criteria for who you have to be. And if you don't live up to that, you are kind of tarnishing your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, you're human.
Right.
Like you have to remember that again, you set up the ideal and that's great and that's hope.
Right.
We've talked about like having hope and planning and all of that, but you have to be able to be flexible.
Yeah. And so judgment is a part of this, right? Like if you don't meet that expectation, you open the door for judgment and judging yourself, again, that shame and guilt. But these are things that keep you stuck. You're kind of just standing in the same place and upset with what didn't happen. And rather than, again, being grateful for what did happen and what you were able to do.
Yeah.
So talk to us about external should statements.
So external should statements is just what it sounds like. It's, things that you think should be happening in your external world, whether it's the way you think society should be or the way someone should talk to you or treat you or the way that, your job should be or the way your boss should be. And it's setting yourself up again because yeah, like I agree with a lot of, what that might be in terms of things you think should be in your external world.
So give us an example.
I think we should be able to trust the grocery stores that all the food in there is safe to eat,
Mm,
but it's not.
yeah.
So continuing to just think that it should be this way is just going to continue to set me up for failure. And I can hope that, I can trust certain brands that I've learned about and everything. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. So if you just continue to like harp on that, well, it should be this way, it should be this way, you're just going to make yourself feel worse. You can't
Yeah.
do anything about it, especially if it's outside of yourself.
It makes me think about our episodes on victim mentality too, because it's shifting blame, but rather than like holding that power, holding that responsibility, you're kind of like blaming the other person, the other party, because something is not a specific way that you believe it should be. So, yeah, it's also kind of giving your power away.
Yeah, I can say, I used to think that way with like my old job. Like,
You know?
I should be making more money or I should be feeling better about what I'm doing because I do have a good job and it's stable and whatever, but I didn't.
Yeah,
And I didn't need to feel guilty about the fact that I wasn't in love with it because that's just what it was. So you don't need to make yourself feel guilty because something isn't the way that you really like imagine it to be.
yeah. It's really like it's just not productive. At the end of the day, you should all over yourself. It's just not getting you to where you want to be. It's not producing an outcome or working toward a beneficial outcome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some examples because, and also like what it looks like to reframe it because obviously this is something we all do. We're all human. We all have expectations for ourselves. So, share a little about that. Like, what would that look like?
I mean, I just shared the work example, but another idea comes up like I should have gotten that promotion
Yeah.
or something, just for an example. And, you know, maybe you do deserve it over the other person and you're a better worker and you've proven that. But again, you're giving the power away because it ultimately wasn't up to you, unfortunately. And someone else got that promotion. Yeah, maybe you still think you should have had it. But if you just sit there and you're stuck in, I should have gotten this should have been me, then it doesn't like allow you to continue to move forward.
Right.
What is in your power is deciding how you move forward now, knowing what decision was made.
Yeah. You know, even if we go back to the example of exercise, like it would be great to exercise today. It would make me feel great too. That allows for change. Like if it doesn't happen, you run out of time, it doesn't fit in your schedule, whatever it is, it's not this guilt and shame of like I should have done that,
Mhm.
you know? It allows for the wiggle room to be human.
Right. That's exactly it. Like you're human. So you think you should be doing all of these things, but life happens sometimes.
Yeah. So talk to us about acceptance because this is like a really big part of should statements and how we start to reframe that.
Yeah, we really have to be willing to accept if something didn't go the way we wanted it to or the way we thought it should.
Yeah.
We need to be able to pivot and recognize again what is in your control because the when you give your power away, it continues to just spiral and make yourself not feel great. And when you can accept, okay, what is in my control is the way I react to it, my actions moving forward, what I want to decide to do. And if you're just stuck in the, well, it should have been this, it should have been that, then that means you're not willing to accept it.
Yeah. And at the core of this is also the idea of your words are powerful, especially the words you use with yourself. Um, Something that I've read kind of from a holistic approach is when you speak, and this is why we call it spelling, because you're casting spells. And the idea is like the words you use have a very profound impact on your mindset, on your body. People think they're not affecting their physiology with the way that they speak to themselves, but they 100% are. And so I think it's just having that incredible awareness about what you're saying, the words you're using, and understanding how those affect you.
Yeah, I mean, think about just the way like feel when you hear certain words.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
It feels great. It's a high frequency word
Mm.
versus hate.
Shame, guilt, those are low frequencies.
Yeah.
And it's kind of understanding too, like higher frequency, better ability to manifest. So if you're setting yourself up into these traps, it could be affecting your business or the things that you're trying to create in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And wanting to be in control.
Mm,
And that's what, again, using those should statements oftentimes is like, I want to control the situation. I want to control something outside of me that you don't have control over. Unfortunately, you can only control yourself, your reactions, and the things that you do.
yeah.
But when you are so caught up in like it should be this way, then you're lacking trust,
Mm,
whether that's in your own self, to believe in yourself and what you're working towards, or believing externally, that things are falling into place the way that they're going to. And sometimes it's not the way that you expected. Sometimes you have to be able to shift. Sometimes it's a different opportunity than you may have thought. Sometimes it's a challenge that you're needing to overcome, but it's not things that are happening to you, it's things that are happening for you.
right. So I just thought of this. Tell me what you think. It's kind of a harsher way of working toward who you want to become and your identity, right? Like you're kind of like beating yourself up.
When you say I should?
Yeah, like I should
Yeah.
be this person.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a really aggressive way of getting there. Um, from personal experience, I, was on a lot of medication. I was drinking a lot. In that time in my life, it was always like I should, you know, go to the gym. I should go to class. And it was a lot of should statements, and it only ever made me feel worse. I mean, especially when it came to work, I should go to work. And then I was calling out, and it was just always like I didn't feel good. And I was always holding myself to these expectations that weren't necessarily unrealistic, but the way I was going about it didn't allow for me to be human and be able to say, like, no, I really don't feel well today. It was just always like, oh, I don't feel well and I feel awful because I didn't do the things I should have done.
Right. And I think that when you're working towards, a goal or something, like you want to be disciplined,
Yeah.
right? Like you want to stay disciplined to going to the gym and stuff, but having the mindset of should and guilting and shaming yourself is very different than, you know, being like, I'm going to be disciplined because it feels really good, but I'm
Mm,
also going to be flexible because today I need rest.
yeah. I think about even like when we talk about, so last year I meditated every day. I say that, but there was I think 2 days where I meditated like past midnight into the next morning, right? Or like there was one day where
I don't think that matters.
no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. There was one day where I meditated. I did miss, but I meditated like first thing in the morning and then again that night to get back on track and get my number. But the thing is, like, that's being human. I don't see it as, oh, I missed. I see it as it's not a perfect journey,
Right.
and it's just understanding. So I think hope, acceptance, and flexibility, those are really like understanding that you're human, things can change, and you need to be mindful of the expectations you hold yourself to, but also, you know, in working toward this new identity of you, focus on what you want, what that outcome feels like, rather than I should be the person who does this.
Hmm.
It's more about how it feels and what that version of you embodies.
Yeah. I like that you put it that way because when you're thinking about like who you want to be and what you want to feel like, it's a very different way of going about it than like, I should be going to the gym because I should lose weight.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't frame it in that way because it's again, like you said, it's forcing it
Mm,
versus like, I actually want to do this because I know how amazing I'll feel after.
Yeah.
And if today's not the day, it's okay. I'm going to rest because it's going to help me to do better tomorrow.
Right. And that's part of it too, is understanding like the days are connected, right? Especially my diet, I struggled with that. Was like, well, today's a wash. I'm gonna eat a ton of calories and just not even pay attention. But the next day I don't feel as good. And now I've got a much deeper understanding of like I overate yesterday by 3,000 calories. That's 3,000 more calories I got to burn today, you know? So or throughout the week. So it's also understanding the compounding effect of how you behave in each day. And the other thing I want to mention too is also you can adopt this perspective of get to. I get to go to the gym. I get to do this.
Mhm.
And that's a really empowering way to reframe the should statements.
I've used that a lot with like
Yeah.
housework stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I should really mow the lawn. Oh
Mm.
my gosh, the lawn is extremely long. I should really get this done. And then I go out there and do it, and I'm like, I get to mow the lawn. I'm having a great time. Like,
I've done that with the lawn too. Like when I think there's definitely been times I was like, oh, I should mow the lawn. But then when I start mowing the lawn, I'm like, I'm so fortunate. Like we have a house, we have a yard, there's land. Like
mhm,
that's a beautiful thing. Usually it's a sunny day if I'm mowing the lawn. So it you really get to have these like moments of bliss. And that's really what we're trying to talk about in this masterclass is, when you have that mindfulness and you're able to collect your breath and be aware of the way you talk to yourself, that's when you get like the gratitude for your day. Like it's not just going to magically happen. It's a skill that you're going to refine.
mhm,
And as you do that, you're going to start to have those moments where like you're like I'm grateful, or you're not holding yourself to these like painful expectations. Um so you know your self-talk is incredibly important, and understanding how to use your breath work is really a great starting point, because the first 20, 30 times you do breath work, you're just going to be listening to your head. And it's going to take a lot of practice to really start to be present and start to pay attention to your self-talk. But when you can start to carry that into your day, see how it affects the expectations you have for yourself when you're grateful, it really becomes powerful.
yeah, it's all a practice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're running on stress, 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 everything you do during the day is going to feel stressful.
Yeah.
And so it's a practice to be present in every moment and be able to reframe it. And if you're doing something you don't necessarily enjoy, being able to say, like, well, this isn't my favorite thing. And
Yeah.
use the and trick that I talked about, I think, last episode.
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel two things at once. This isn't my favorite chore to do. And you know what? I'm grateful that I have a house to even clean.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it. But just the idea of reframe, you have to catch yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you say these things, but try to notice and reframe it in a different way to what the ideal would be. But it's okay if you don't get that.
Yeah. And this goes back to our first few episodes. It really starts with that awareness
Mm.
and seeing how you're talking to yourself. If there are should statements there, spend some time, do an exercise journal, write, 5 ways you can reframe that. It's really not super time consuming once you have an understanding of what it might look like to reframe that.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder that our masterclass is coming up February 26th. I believe that's a Monday
Hmm.
at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, Again, that's on breathwork and self-talk, and we'll kind of review the nervous system, and then we've got some surprises coming up after that, so stay tuned. This podcast is sponsored by New Moon Apparel. That is our Zen, motivation, and moon themed clothing line. I think we're going to have some new designs soon, which is exciting. You can shop designs at newmoonapparel.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.